From Central Ohio's #1 source for news, this is 10 TV Eyewitness News.
The announcement's about to be made. Ohio's own John Glenn going back to outer space. Good afternoon. I'm Jerry Revish.
And I'm Andrea Cameron. Thanks for joining us.
2, 1, 0, liftoff.
Lots of us will remember these pictures back in 1962 when John Glenn became the first American to orbit the Earth. Now NASA is about to hold a news conference to announce that the astronaut turned U.S. Senator returns again as an astronaut. 10 TV's Dave Kaler joins us live from our nation's capital with our top story today, where that news conference is just about to get underway. Dave?
Yeah, Andrea did. It just got underway. We are here at NASA headquarters in Washington, D.C. Daniel Golden, the administrator at NASA, is on the podium to announce that John Glenn will fly in the Space Shuttle Discovery on October the 8th as a payload specialist. Let's go now to that announcement.
What an incredible day for John Glenn, for Ohio, for NASA, but most of all, what a great day for America. So it is my distinct pleasure to introduce NASA's newest and oldest astronaut, John Glenn.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan, very much for that over-generous introduction here today. I guess Annie and I attended a dinner back home in Ohio not too long ago in which the person introducing me got all carried away with accolades and accomplishments I never dreamed of having in this life or the next, and finished this introduction by finally saying, "There are few truly great men in this world." And then he introduced me. Now that's rather heady. And going home that night, I guess I was still thinking about it and mentally basking in the glow of that introduction. And I said, Annie, you know, if you think about it, there aren't very many really, truly great Americans in this world. And it took her about 10 seconds to say, "Let me tell you something, there's sure one less than you think there is."
Glenn is in Houston, reacquainting himself with space travel. As John Glenn begins to suit up here, that's when the mission really begins to heat up. John has been meeting more often with the crew members here, and now they're starting to gel, according to some people. Even though the mood is upbeat here at the Johnson Space Center, questions continue to surface about John Glenn's age. NASA officials did tell us today that plans are being made just in case Glenn does suffer from fatigue. Glenn's age was the big topic this day. With training virtually done, the mission's flight director finally revealed to me that Glenn's age can't be rolled out for things that could go wrong in space, like fatigue.
We also try to train other crew members as backups. As you point out, fatigue can be a factor for crew members of any age.
Engeloff says some 15 experiments would be sacrificed if Glenn tires in space. But Glenn made reassurance that he's ready.
Will you be able to avoid the fatigue factors that may exist up there?
Yes.
It's an enormous undertaking trying to send John Glenn and the rest of the Discovery crew back to space. But it's been a tough one, too, for NASA officials, trying to overcome some problem areas. With all the hype of John Glenn going back to space, all the news is centered around his training. But we can't forget this mission has developed some problems, and they're glitches NASA is trying to overcome. John Glenn's training was one of them. Glenn had trouble juggling his schedule as a senator and his training as an astronaut. It wasn't until 3 months before liftoff that Glenn finally trained with the rest of the crew. NASA officials would have liked it sooner. Back in September, the shuttle was moved out to the launch pad, a 4-mile trek from the vehicle assembly building. But Hurricane George forced NASA officials to make plans to bring it back. Fortunately, the shuttle rode out the storm.
8. We have a go for simulated engine start. 5.
October 9th, the only mock launch. Launch Control developed communication problems with the shuttle. It wasn't a serious glitch, but it was one they had to fix. And Flight Director Phil Engeloff told us the experiment run-throughs have been plagued with procedural problems.
You go through an experiment and you find out that, well, you assumed that something was going to be powered up here, but it's not, so you have to go back and add a power-up step for that piece of peripheral equipment.
Engeloff said these problems typically develop. None have been so serious that it forced a delay. But he did say they'll be dealing with these small problems all the way up to launch day. Tino Ramos, 10 TV, Eyewitness News.
NASA hopes Mitch won't mess up Thursday's shuttle launch, though. The The storm could push winds at the Kennedy Space Center above 17 miles an hour. Now, these are live pictures from the Cape. If the winds go past 20 miles an hour, John Glenn's historic return to space could be delayed. Doppler 10 meteorologist Chris Shumway is in the Weather Center tracking the storm. Mitch is nowhere near Florida, but we're hearing that there's a 30% chance the launch could be delayed, Chris.
Right. Still a slight chance there could be a delay. The effect would be the winds, not necessarily around the storm, of course, because it's a long way from Florida, but it does affect the wind patterns as far away as Florida, giving a good east wind up here. There's also high pressure over the southeast, and that kind of swirls the wind in off the Atlantic. It's been pretty breezy for a few days, but the good news there for the launch is that as the hurricane continues to track a little bit to the west, the wind pressure gradient or the air pressure gradient may relax a little bit, and that may put wind speeds down a little. But speaking of the hurricane, winds now 165 miles an hour, still a catastrophic large hurricane headed again for, it looks like the Yucatan to Belize and Honduras. All hurricane warnings up for those areas right now, and we'll keep watching it, of course. For more on the Discovery Shuttle mission, let's go over to Andrea Camburn.
All right, Chris, thanks a lot. Actually, that's really good news, what you told us, because a lot of people are banking on the shuttle going up as scheduled on Thursday. 10 TV's Tino Ramos, one of the people. He joins us now from the Kennedy Space Center. And Tino, you look alone today, but it sounds like there's going to be a couple 100,000 people with you soon.
I tell you what, there are a lot of people already here. That's the thing about it too, Andrea. The big focus on John Glenn going up has brought a big resurgence for the space shuttle. And not only will the people be watching it, but the media too. This is our perch that we have here, but we also want to show you too. Look at all the scaffolding that's down here. And as we look further on down here, we can see the risers where hundreds of journalists will be down here, if not thousands of journalists, to record this particular event. Now, this is just the front here. Take a look at some of the video that we have. We want to show you some of the technology in. Look at all these satellite trucks. We counted over 40 satellite trucks that are here, hundreds of miles of cables. We talked with some of the phone people. They said 3,000 phone lines have been installed here. Just to show you how big this thing is going to be media-wise, take a look at some of these numbers we have. We did some comparison here. The Mercury 6, that was John Glenn's original launch. 379 pieces of media were here. For STS-1, that's the first shuttle mission. 2,707 people were here from the media. And look at this one. This launch could draw as much as 3,700 people here from the media alone just to cover this event. Look at that. That's 1,000 more. Just an incredible amount of people are here. And we have to remember, too, these are not only just American journalists here. We have journalists here from Europe because of Pedro Duque, and, of course, from Japan because of Shiaki Mukai, the Japanese passenger that's on here. This is just incredible, the size of this thing, Andrea. And, of course, we're going to bring it all to you live.
What a great event it's going to be, bringing so much attention back to the space program. That's
Absolutely.
really critical. Tino, thanks a lot. Tino Ramos reporting for us from Kennedy Space Center.
That is right, Andrea. The excitement is really building now at the Kennedy Space Center. In fact, that's Discovery right over my left shoulder. The weather is perfect. There are no major technical problems, and the astronauts, well, they're good to go. This afternoon, they will be up in the air flying T-38 training jets. The idea is to keep their skills sharp before liftoff. They also got to see their families one last time. But unlike the pictures from Monday, today it is at a distance because the crew is in a pre-launch medical quarantine. You may know John Glenn's wife Annie is here at the Kennedy Space Center. So are his 2 children and his 2 grandchildren. And despite all the hoopla surrounding this historic mission, the countdown has been nearly flawless. NASA bosses say they are focused on the launch ahead of them.
5, 4.
Godspeed, John Glenn.
Live from the Kennedy Space Center, 10 TV Eyewitness News presents Countdown to Discovery, John Glenn's return to space.
This ship is very different from the first one. Now, we held our breath as John Glenn rocketed into space 36 years ago. The first American to cross into the final frontier is preparing tonight for a new mission of discovery. Good evening, everyone. I am Angela Pace. Dave Kaler will join me in just a moment from the Discovery Update Center in Columbus at WBNS. 100% chance for launch. All systems appear to be go for John Glenn and the rest of the crew of the Shuttle Discovery. Liftoff is scheduled for 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Now, tonight, we are going to walk you through the 8-day mission to prepare you for tomorrow's historic launch. She was the first woman astronaut to walk in space, but many of you back home know her as the head of COSI. Time now to bring Dr. Catherine Sullivan and welcome her into the 10 TV Discovery team. This has got to bring back a lot of memories for you.
Well, it really does, Angela. The last day before launch is a final sort of neatening up of last-minute checks, technically, chat with your family, and what I know the crew did about 8:30 this evening, since they launched during the daytime and nobody can resist the sight of the orbiter gleaming on the pad once the service structure is pulled back. They went out to the pad too to just stand there in awe and marvel at this craft.
So they didn't want to wait till tomorrow.
There's no way they're going to wait for tomorrow. It won't look as gleamingly bright and as spectacular in the morning. It'll look spectacular in a different way, but this is a sight no astronaut likes to miss.
From WBNS 10 TV, your 24-hour news source. This is 10 TV Eyewitness News.
Well, this is John Glenn's big day.
We're all feeling pretty good about it, though, aren't we?
We are. It's
pretty
a big
proud to have him as an Ohioan. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. An estimated 250,000 people are expected to be there to watch John Glenn and his 6 crewmates take off in the Space Shuttle Discovery. It happens at 2 o'clock this afternoon. Glenn's launch is, of course, our top story today at noon. These are live pictures from the Kennedy Space Center, the crew already on board Discovery. And it's already been a very long day. Bright and early at 5 o'clock this morning, people pulled in and staked out their spots on the Cape. The weather is picture perfect in Florida and the countdown is proceeding as planned. As we begin our countdown to Discovery today, Jerry joins us from our Discovery Update Center. Jerry?
Well, that's right. All 7 astronauts were up around 8 o'clock this morning and out to that pad by 11:15. 10 TV's Dave Kaler and Angela Pace got an early start, too, this morning. Dave joins us live now at the Kennedy Space Center, where the space shuttle crew is getting ready to seal that hatch. Right, Dave and Andrea?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, after months of training and all the media hype, it comes down to one day. Yep. Just one day, and that is today. The 7 astronauts of the Discovery Space Shuttle Discovery are being strapped in, as you saw there a few moments ago. They're out on the pad. They've had a great morning. And this should be one of the largest crowds ever to see the Space Shuttle lift off, or Liftoff Space Shuttle here at Cape Canaveral. And we understand the #1 fan, the President of the United States, just arrived minutes ago.
But I think the President is going to have to take a back seat to one very important man, because the eyes of the world today are focused on a man from a small town in eastern Ohio, not too far from Columbus. John Glenn is an astronaut once again, and he has already had a very busy morning. John Glenn has put on and taken off this spacesuit more times than he cares to remember. But after waiting...
We'd like to introduce Dr. Bernadine Healy of the Ohio State University Medical School to answer some questions on the health issue. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Great to be here.
Is he too old to fly?
Well, I don't think we can say that, because we don't have the answers. And actually, Senator Glenn is going to provide extraordinary information on a very fit 77-year-old man who has clearly some of the age change that occur in anybody when they approach that time, both in their muscles, their bones, their heart, their brain, and we're going to find out.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dave Kaler.
And I'm Angela Pace, and we are back here at the Kennedy Space Center at Cape Canaveral in Florida. We are live at the 10 TV Eyewitness Discovery Team Command Post with the shuttle in the background, and of course the crew is on board right now. The hatch has been closed. We're told there was a minor delay because the cooling unit in the suit of the pilot had to be swapped with that of one of the mission specialists. Apparently that was not working as well as it should be, but that's all taken care of now. All is well, and as far as we know, the shuttle is still a go.
And for the next 2.5 hours, we are going to bring you live coverage of the launch of the shuttle Discovery, and you'll witness John Glenn's dream of returning to space.
Now, he's been waiting for this for more than 36 years, 1962 when he went up the first time. Glenn and the 6 other astronauts, they are now in the shuttle. As we said, they're all strapped in. Within the last few minutes, the hatch door was closed, and the crew members from NASA, right now, they are checking the seal of the hatch, making sure that there are no leaks there. The Discovery crew got up at 7 o'clock this morning, and they have been moving around ever since then. As part of 10 TV's Discovery Crew team coverage, we like to bring in someone who is very familiar with everything that's been going on here over the last few days. Dr. Catherine Sullivan. She is a former shuttle astronaut, has been on 3 missions. More importantly to the folks in Columbus, though, she's head of COSI. Now, what is going on right now? They're all strapped in, they're waiting. They've got, about an hour and a half to go.
Right, and most of the crew has not much really to do during that time. There'll be a set of cabin leak checks, changing the inertial measurement unit system for the guidance of the orbiter, setting up some of the computers, and an increasing set of things the commander and pilot will do as you get right down towards the final liftoff. The rest of the crew is thinking ahead to what's coming after liftoff, or thinking about their last expectations of this great ride. But they're usually pretty intent in listening to what the launch control team is doing.
I just heard launch control saying something in our ears. I can't make it out where they are, but where would they be about right now?
Once the hatch closeout crew finishes its exterior work on the hatch,
right,
they verify all that stuff, they pull back away from the pad, and one of the next key events from inside the cockpit is the commander doing a set of cabin leak checks for Ground Control Center.
All right.
Now, early this morning, they started loading up the tanks with fuel. How much fuel are we talking about?
Oh, that's a great space trivia question, and I forget the exact number, but it's something like 520,000 gallons of liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen. And you notice
the external tanks.
The external tank, yeah, right? And you notice now that you see shots of the vehicle on the pad, you'll see that steam venting off of the tanks. It's chilled down. It's super cold. And it really makes a difference when you go out to the pad on launch day. The vehicle is groaning and creaking. You stand out on the access arm, you would almost swear the vehicle is alive and definitely wants to leave.
It's as anxious to leave probably as the crew is then.
It's hard to be more anxious than the crew, yeah.
Okay, we're looking at live pictures here now, Dr. Sullivan. What's going on here?
This is the hatch closeout crew in the white room. That room is 195 feet above the crawler surface. And they have a set of final hookups and connections and fasteners and plugs to put in place so the outside surface and seal of the hatch is perfect. Next time the hatch will be opened, ideally, is by them again on the runway at the end of the mission.
All right, and we're sure that's the way it's going to happen, too. Dr. Sullivan, of course, we're going to be back with you, but 10 TV, of course, is covering every single angle of this Discovery mission. We have crews located here in Florida. We have them in Houston at Mission Control. We have them in New Concord, which is John Glenn's hometown, and several locations around Columbus as the folks there are watching this launch. And our 10 TV team includes Ohio News Network anchor Deborah Knapp, who is also here at Cape Canaveral. Deborah?
Hi, Angela. Hi, Dave. Yes, I'm out in the media masses, I guess. Hundreds of people are surrounding me at this time. And, you know, it's kind of the calm before the big event. A lot of the hustle and bustle was going on earlier today, but obviously the astronauts are in place and ready to go. So the most of us are just setting up, doing some last-minute interviews, prepping for the actual launch. So it is pretty quiet, unusually quiet at this time, something we haven't seen so much of in the past couple of days. So everybody is gearing up for the big event, which is at just in less than a couple of hours.
108.
All right, thank you very much, Deborah.
Right.
Right.
She's over at the museum. Marcy?
Hi guys, I'm about 11 miles from you at the Astronaut Hall of Fame, and it's pretty much like a carnival here. Take a look. We've got hundreds and hundreds of people who have flooded the front grass here. This is one of the most terrific places to watch the launch because it's right over the water, as I said, 11 miles. Lots of things for the families to do here. They've got moonwalks and a barbecue. The excitement is certainly building. I know it's also building somewhere else back in Ohio in New Concord. That's where Robin Simmons is in John Glenn's hometown. Robin?
That is right, Marcy. Let me tell you, the kids are just starting to file in here at the gym at John Glenn High School, of course, named for Ohio's favorite son. The kids are going to be watching the launch on that projector screen. I'm not sure if you can see it there behind me, but they are filing in here and ready and waiting for liftoff. And we are going to take it now to our nation's capital, where, before the senator retired, he was calling his second home, and out to Rhonda Pence.
I'm at the National Air and Space Museum here in Washington, D.C. Now, this is the most visited museum in the world, but as you can imagine, visitorship is even up. Why? Because right behind me, Friendship 7, the Mercury capsule, that's what John Glenn rode in when he made that first historic mission orbiting the Earth 3 times. Let's go now to Houston with Tino Ramos.
Thank you, Rhonda. Welcome to Johnson Space Center. We are here at Mission Control. We just a short time ago got a rare glimpse and a rare talk with the flight director, Phil Engeloff. We asked him if everything was ready. He gave us the thumbs up on it, so they're just kind of sitting tight, waiting for things to take place. We're here in the training facility. Much of the astronauts are very familiar with this because it's here where they go through much of the mission as well as the flight plan for this thing. And coming up a little bit later, we're going to explain to you some of the things that they're going through that in terms of the launch and when they move up there and the mission itself, as well as we'll take a look at some of the astronauts that are joining John Glenn on this historic trip back into space. In the meantime, let's go ahead and go back to Columbus to Chuck Strickler at our State House.
All right, Tino, and good afternoon. We are reporting live from the crypts of the State House and the bowels really down here. And we have two monitors set up here in coordination with our cable affiliate, ONN. The big one here, the big screen, and also this television here right in the crypt section. We are told that high school, or rather a group of kids from a local school, are going to be coming by here, watching the launch as we approach liftoff time, and we're going to be getting some reaction from them, as well as some of the state workers here who have gathered here. You can see them. They are getting ready. Of course, we're still a time away from the actual liftoff itself. You know, this is the base of support for John Glenn. 1972, he really began his political career in the U.S. Senate, and he's the first person to win 4 consecutive terms. So a lot of people are going to be very interested in watching exactly what happens as we get ready to lift off and as we actually see the blast off right here. So we'll be back here and get plenty of reaction from the State House. Now, back to you.
And we are at COSI, where we are watching the launch preparations on high-definition television. It's very exciting. In fact, things have been so clear here that I've actually had to touch the screen to make sure what we were watching was not a window or something that was real. Now, we are at COSI. We are on the first floor of COSI. There's plenty of room. You, if you're interested here in the Columbus area, can come and take a look at this pioneering effort. Now, take a look where we are here in the area as we get set up for the launch. Now, keep in mind, back in 1962, folks, about 8,000 people came to Grand Central Station in New York to watch the launch, and that was historic. Now, here in 1998, we're watching this historic launch on high-definition television, and you can do it right here. Also watching launch preparations are kids at Clinton Middle School here in Columbus. Kelly Hudson is there. Kelly?
I'm Kelly Hudson here at Clinton Middle School, and yes, I'm with the Young Astronauts Club, about a dozen of them that are going to get a chance to see this blast live. Many of them have already said they want to be astronauts because they want to know what it feels like to be able to float weightless, and they're going to get a chance to see it. History today, particularly for John Glenn. So we'll bring you more of their reaction coming up. Now, here's Lisa Kick on the OSU campus in Bricker Hall.
That's right. We're standing right outside the office of the president. President Kerwin is in Florida, enjoying it firsthand up close for himself. But folks are going to start gathering here, other students and staff members who are all excited about Glenn going into space. And they'll be watching the mission right here on this big monitor set up in Bricker Hall. They are excited about this mission, but they're also excited after he lands about his new mission right here at Ohio State University, the John Glenn Institute for Public Service and Public Policy. Something very interesting. They're kicking off Space Week here at Ohio State. We'll have more on that and, of course, reaction to the launch of the Discovery. That's coming up in just a little bit. But first, let's go ahead and check out Penny Moore. Penny, you are probably with some folks who are very excited to see Glenn go up in space.
I am, Lisa. These are the people who remember the first time he went up in space 36 years ago. I'm at the Second and Summit Senior Rec Center on the short north side of Columbus. All of these folks are getting ready to watch it. And I want you to meet a woman who remembers John Glenn's first shot very well. This is Irene Evans. And Irene, I'm not going to say how old you are, except that you're 2 years older than Senator Glenn. And would you do this if you had the chance?
Oh, sure. Most of my life's behind me, and even if I didn't get back, wouldn't be that much to lose. That would be fun.
It would be fun, and I'm sure Senator Glenn feels exactly the same way, Irene. We're going to stay with these folks and watch the big launch all afternoon, and then we'll have some more reaction for you. Dave and Angela, these are the people who care the most that a senior citizen is making this space launch today.
And a senator, too, Penny. You had that right. Yeah, absolutely right. You know, for people, young people, and the more seasoned folks like Penny's friends there, this mission really is quite an adventure. It's an adventure for us, too, because this is a joint broadcast between WBNS, 10 TV, Eyewitness News, and ONN, our cable sister news network.
And when you're talking about the experiments on board, though, you're talking about the medical researchers. This is a dream for the medical researchers, but particularly when they are studying about the effect of aging and the aging in the human body and the aging in spaceflight.
And here to tell us more about that is Dr. Bernadine Healy. She is the Dean of the Ohio State University Medical School. And so, of course, you have been following all these medical experiments pretty closely because this is, as you just told me, a medical mission first.
This is a medical mission, and it's focusing very concretely on aging issues in space. Virtually all of the experiments pretty much relate to aging. Things like loss of muscle and bone mass in space, sleep problems that occur in space where your sleep gets fragmented, you wake up, your biological rhythms are distorted, cardiovascular changes in the EKG. The whole thing orients towards this.
What will be the toughest part that John Glenn will have to face, though, in terms of his 77-year-old body? Are we talking about a cardiovascular, or are we talking about things that happen in the weightlessness?
Well, I think in terms of, remember, he is both an experimenter and a subject.
Right.
In terms of the experimenter, he has to wear this electrode cap that, if you've seen it, looks like it would be very difficult to sleep in, and he's going to have to sleep in that several nights. In terms of his own stresses and strains on his body, I think initially, with all those G's, probably cardiovascular. But once he gets up into space, he'll be floating and happy as a baby, I'm sure, with zero gravity, deconditioned or not.
Now, with the zero gravity, we're talking about no sense of balance at all. Is it going to be tougher then for Senator Glenn to learn to move around? When he was in Friendship 7, he was strapped down, didn't have to go anywhere. Now he's going to be mobile.
This is a new experience for Senator Glenn. He never really had to deal with this. But, you know, some people, some school of thought say it'll be harder for an older man because they already have some age changes. Others say maybe it will be less hard because he already has had some deterioration there, and he won't feel it as much.
Well, he's admitted in training he's not as agile as he used to be, and he doesn't bend like the young guys. I think was what he said earlier.
Who does?
And it comes with all of us in age.
That's right.
He's going to be a pioneer teaching us more about it.
I can't wait till he gets back and teaches us all something. Dr. Healy, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Okay, stay with us. We are going to take you to the Astronaut Hall of Fame, where a lot of folks are watching this launch.
And you're looking at live pictures right now of the countdown. Shuttle Discovery takes off at 2 o'clock. This is your 24-hour news source. We will be right back with Mission Discovery. As the clock ticks, here's what we can expect to happen in the next few minutes. If I missed the cue there, I'm listening to the mission control in my ears. At 12:49, and actually a little bit earlier than that, the Discovery's hatch was closed and was sealed.
And then at 1:39, the launch team will brief the launch director. That's actually a status test, we're told.
And NASA will start the automatic ground launch sequencer at T-minus 9 minutes. And we see the graphic there. 12:49, the hatch closed. 1:30, and actually we're ahead of that. 1:39, the PM briefings, as Angela was saying, and at T-minus 9 minutes, the what they call the sequencer. Wait a minute, I got to come back together. What is the sequencer?
There are two sequencers involved in the final stages of this. This one at 9 minutes is a ground launch sequencer. It's actually software in the Launch Control Center computers. At 31 seconds, that sequencer will hand over to the onboard computers of the shuttle, and they will control the final 31 seconds. And all of the key events, the starting of the main engines, the checking that they're at full power level, and the ignition of the solid rocket motors.
All right.
Okay, so kind of a shift of command there for a little while.
External to internal.
All right, thanks.
You know, the Kennedy Space Center is packed with astronauts from the previous missions. There are nearly 3,800 journalists here as well, all over the world, and they are expecting a crowd of 250,000 people right here at the Cape to watch this.
And Marcy Flesher is live right now at the Astronaut Hall of Fame, where we understand there is quite a huge crowd. Marcy?
That's right, Angela. The crowd keeps getting bigger, and I'm with one individual who may not know as much as Kathy Sullivan, but give him some time, he will. Will Upton, you may recall, he's part of our 10 TV broadcast team. Will, when we met up this morning, you told me you were nervous. How come?
Well, I'm just nervous and yet excited because it's my first shuttle launch, and, well, you know.
You warned me that we may feel some of the effects of the Discovery shuttle. What do you mean?
Well, the wind's blowing pretty hard in our direction, so it's blowing that way, and the shuttle's over there. So we might get some of the smoke and a little bit of the flame maybe, fumes, and then we're going to feel all of the earth shake.
Will, how is it that you know so much?
From going like to space camp, and I've read a lot about space and all that.
And you told me last night you want to be an astronaut. You still feel that way this morning, huh?
Yes, I do.
How come?
Because it's just more exciting now, because I get to see them go up and watch the shuttle actually go up. So.
All right, Will. Well, we are putting you to work today. That's right. Later tonight on Eyewitness News, will file his own report. You will see it through the eyes of a youngster, and I could never find a better youngster than this one, Angela. I'm afraid he's going to take my job.
Marcy, he is primed for your job and my job, and I'm telling you, we're going to be back here in a few years, and we are going to be covering the Will Upton shuttle launch,
right,
okay?
yeah.
You mark my words there. The decision for John Glenn to return to space was not an easy one for his family to make. His son, his daughter, his wife, Annie, they didn't want him to go, but eventually, Annie Glenn came around.
And Kurt Brown, the commander, asked me if I would like to attend classes and also to watch them in training. I did that. I learned an awful lot. I watched them all in training. I got to know the crew, and I was in technical classes. A lot of it was over my head, but I learned, and I came home 100% behind the whole thing.
And the crew was allowed to spend a few hours every day with their loved ones since they arrived here on Monday. Right now, the families are in a private viewing area so that they can see the Discovery taking off. Right now, you can see the countdown clock, and what is that? That is T-minus 48 minutes and 19, 14, 13 seconds.
Yeah, it's going down.
So the countdown is definitely on.
You know, she is such a fantastic woman, and she has lived with John Glenn as a Marine, as a fighter pilot, as all of that. And Annie and John, of course, were childhood sweethearts in New Concord, Ohio. And we will be going to New Concord in just a few minutes.
And we'll have more from the Kennedy Space Center right after this.
You're watching Mission Discovery, special coverage from 10 TV Eyewitness News and the Ohio News Network, with 10 TV's Dave Kaler, Angela Pace, and ONN's Deborah Knapp.
It's an icon of American space history, and it's been here since the beginning. And right now, all eyes are on the countdown clock as it ticks away the hours and the minutes and the seconds. Well, our own ONN, Ohio News Network anchor, Deb Knapp, is down by the clock, and she's going to give us the latest on that. Deb?
Hi, Dave. Exactly.
Hi.
There's a lot of attractions out here. One of the biggest attractions, as you mentioned, is this countdown clock, and a lot of our eyes are fixed on it. We have to remember this isn't exactly the time that it will go off, but we'll explain that in just a little bit. This clock is actually a constant reminder as to when history will happen. This clock shows the real countdown is on. NASA powered up, and the clock started ticking at 8 Monday morning. A tradition 20 years old for NASA. Bruce Buckingham has watched these numbers count down several times.
It's got a varied history behind it. We use it all the time for these launch countdowns. I think anybody that watches a shuttle launch on TV will recognize this clock.
It's not your typical clock. In fact, you would not rely on it for true time.
I needed that clock to wake me up this morning. I was running late.
It stops 7 times in the period leading up to the launch. And unless you're around NASA types a lot, it's a little confusing.
So I think we're kind of embarrassed that we don't know because we feel like we should.
You're going to tell me?
The stop times are called holds.
But the holds are in place so that if we get behind in some of our operations, we can catch up, or if we just need to have a spot where everybody regroups at the exact same time.
The holds can range from 11 hours to 10 minutes.
The last 2 holds we're going to see today are at T-minus 20 minutes and T-minus 9 minutes, and those holds will last for 10 minutes.
This may be the only place time stands still.
But it's very dramatic.
Brief moments for NASA to take a deep breath and prepare for liftoff. You know, Dave, this has a lot of history behind it, as I mentioned. There was actually one point Bruce Buckingham was telling us where the countdown clock was stopped at practically 0-0. That's right before the shuttle was supposed to go off. They had some minor technical problems in the engine. I would suppose that's a little bit more than minor, but they did hold off on letting the shuttle take off. Basically what happened, 6 seconds until blast off. The booster rockets are lit, and then by the time it gets down to 0-0, it's off the pad. It's too late, and they are gone.
All right, Deb, thanks a lot. Deb Knapp of Ohio News Network, and we are in partnership with the Ohio News Network, and we thank you very much for that report.
Okay, now we talk about the launch. Now something very important happens at that launch, because as soon as the Discovery shuttle is just inches off the ground, then control shifts from here in Florida to the Johnson Space Center in Houston. That's where mission control is. And then for the next 9 days, the astronauts and the mission then are in the hands of the workers at mission control in Houston. That's where our Tino Ramos is. He's been there for quite some time. Tino, what is the mood there in Houston?
Yeah, you know, it's obviously the calm before the storm, much like your place as well. But you're right, you know, all the attention goes to the Kennedy Space Center because that's all the glitz and glamour of the launch itself. But it's here where the mission itself is pretty much handled on mission control. It's kind of funny because all this attention that we've been going through has been pretty much focused on John Glenn. But well, you have to remember the crew of the Discovery really does have a leader. The leader's name is Kurt Brown, and he's had a tough time trying to keep his astronauts focused on the mission itself because of all the media hype and all the attention to John Glenn. But John Glenn has commented that he's done a wonderful job in doing so. Now, Kurt Brown, the commander, he'll be on the simulator behind me. He'll be on the back side of it. If I can show you this model here, he'll be sitting up on the flight deck. He'll be looking out this particular window, and it's right now when he has to pay attention closely to the launch, mission, as well as the landing. Curtis Brown, Discovery Mission Commander for STS-95, 42 years old, and is native to North Carolina. Brown is a lieutenant colonel with the U.S. Air Force. He will be the veteran of this mission. This is Brown's 5th flight into space, already logging 977 hours in orbit. He has been an astronaut with NASA since 1987. His first flight into space happened 5 years later. He's been aboard the Shuttle Endeavour and Atlantis, working on such projects like the joint U.S. and Japan life science experiments. And he's taken part in numerous experiments related to the future space station. The Discovery mission is the last flight before construction begins on the space station. Brown says of the 5 flights in space, this mission will be his busiest.
We have something for everyone on this flight. We have science that ranges from astronomy to medical life sciences, which is a big part, to material processing, to biology. You name it, we have it on STS-95.
Curtis Brown, Discovery Mission Commander for STS-95. Now, I did get a chance to talk with Commander Brown a couple of times. I've been following this for the past 4 or 5 months, and I talked with him here at the Johnson Space Center, while they were training on some of the facilities behind me. What's kind of interesting about Kurt Brown is that he's been not only being able to keep his crew focused, but he's also been able to keep them kind of lighthearted. They joke around quite a bit. They were joking around. Matter of fact, when they came back here, or when they came from the Johnson Space Center to the Kennedy Space Center for the launch itself, Angela, Dave, you saw them just kind of laughing, prodding, poking at each other. They have their own little nicknames for each other. So you can probably let Kurt Brown be responsible for that, for keeping these guys up, focused, and ready to go.
All right, Tino, we're going to put you in charge of finding out what those nicknames are, okay?
I do have some.
Okay, we'll get back to you on that. Thanks a lot, Tino. Tino Ramos reporting live from Houston Mission Control. And Tino will be in Houston, remain there throughout the mission, and he will be there when the shuttle lands right here at Kennedy Space Center on November the 6th. Well, we have a bird's eye view right now as the countdown to Discovery continues.
And we are going to give you a first-hand look at what's happening right now with the crew as the live coverage of the Discovery mission watches the clock right here on 10 TV. Back in a moment.
You're watching Mission Discovery, special coverage from 10 TV Eyewitness News and the Ohio News Network, with 10 TV's Dave Kaler, Angela Pace, and ONN's Deborah Knapp.
And welcome back as the clock continues to count down for the launch of the Discovery and John Glenn's return to space.
And our own expert, Dr. Catherine Sullivan, joins us now as we continue to watch the clock. And Dr. Sullivan, you seem to be a little bit concerned because there are still people on the launch pad.
Well, the crew that closes out and secures the hatch normally finishes its activities and leaves as the countdown clock hits the 20-minute point. They had a little bit of a slowdown getting the hatch closed. They seem to be finishing up now, so you just watch that activity very carefully, because unless the cabin leak checks get complete and the hatch properly closed, you've got a problem you're going to have to solve. So it's one of those critical final moments. Get that door closed properly.
All right, now as the clock ticks, here's what can we expect to happen in the next few minutes. And Dr. Sullivan, correct us if we are wrong here with these times. At T-minus 7.5 minutes, the crew access arm to the orbiter will be retracted.
And then at T-minus 6 minutes and 15 seconds, NASA will start the mission recorders.
And at T-minus 5 minutes, the auxiliary power units will be started.
So, Dr. Sullivan, are we okay on that so far?
We're okay?
That's right. We'll also be watching real carefully at 20 minutes, T-minus 20 minutes, and holding, actually, just before the hold. They'll shift the computers over to the flight mode.
And that is a planned hold at 20 minutes?
It's a planned 10-minute hold at 20, and then another planned 10-minute hold at 9, which is really sort of the final count to 10, take your last breath, lets everybody hunker down and focus. All the heavy stuff happens inside of 9 minutes.
And then it all goes from there.
We hope so.
All right, Dr. Sullivan. You know, John Glenn's mission in space is for medical reasons, but everyone was surprised last week when it was announced that he was not going to take part in one very special experiment that has to do with aging. So some critics now are actually questioning the senator's role in this mission.
He ought to be going to space because it's a fun thing to do. But I think the basic reason he is going is because he is John Glenn and because he's a senator. Attention to detail.
Story Musgrave knows how NASA works. He's a 30-year veteran. He repaired the Hubble telescope, earning him the nickname, the man who saved NASA. Now Musgrave is slamming the space program and the aging experiments Glenn will be performing.
There is no aging program. There is no program. This is a one-shot.
And maybe that is true. One of Glenn's key experiments was the effect of sleep on an aging body. But in August, NASA quietly pulled Glenn off that study for a medical reason that has remained undisclosed. And a New York newspaper working on the Glenn story requested through the Freedom of Information Act all government documents saying that Glenn is fit to fly. NASA wrote back saying that no documentation responsive to the request was located. So as John Glenn is poked and prodded, will it really be in the name of science?
And our Marcy Fleischer got a chance to talk to Dr. Bernadine Healy of the OSU Medical School about the experiments involving John Glenn and space and aging.
There is some controversy surrounding John Glenn's return to space. Is this a scientific experiment or is it a publicity stunt? Dr. Bernadine Healy, thank you for joining us. Your feelings on that, science or PR?
Well, I think there's science here. I think that there are a lot of very intriguing questions about aging in space. Aging is accelerated in space. You and I don't want to go up there. And I think that they're getting the appropriate measures. They will get information. It is not the kind of experiment you could do on Earth where you could use hundreds of people up there. You have to be limited to a few data points, a few individuals. But we will definitely get scientific information. If in addition, we all feel good about it and America sees John Glenn as our hero, that's not so bad.
John Glenn, not a young man, 77 years old. What can this do to his body?
Well, we don't really know. Really, he is almost 80. We know that your cardiovascular system, your lung system get very stiff as you get older. There are a lot of quick shifts when he goes from 3Gs to weightlessness, and we really don't know. And they're going to be determining that up there. Hopefully, if there are some problems that he has, they will only be minor, and we'll find out about those problems.
Once in orbit, what do you think he will feel being the age he is?
Well, when they first go into orbit, all astronauts get a lot of blood that goes into their head. Their face gets swollen, they get a stuffy nose. They also have balance problems and sometimes dizziness and actually sometimes vomiting, nausea. More than half of astronauts have that feeling. Now, older people may have that worse. Remember, when John Glenn went up on Friendship 7, he was strapped in, he was up there for 5 hours, he never felt any dizziness, imbalance, or sickness to his stomach. He might experience that on this trip.
You got a chance to sit down with him not so long ago. What do you suspect he's feeling right now?
I think he is in the zone. I think he is focusing on what he's about to do. I don't even think he's paying attention to all of the world watching him. He is focusing on those experiments. He very much wants to make this a scientific medical mission.
To make it that, do you feel that we have to continue to send senior citizens into space?
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, he is not your typical senior citizen. I think we do have to get more information about people who are older, and if we are going to have a space station, and we know that would be a major commitment, we do have to have this kind of information. This is coming perhaps sooner than we normally would have expected. We have a lot of data to get on people in their 40s and 50s.
You had a chance to sit down with John Glenn a couple weeks ago, but this morning you spoke with his daughter Lynn, who has not been a huge fan of this flight. How is she doing, and how is her mother Annie doing?
Well, I think Lynn came out and said what most of the family believed and were feeling in their hearts, which is if she had it her way, her father would not go back into space, and if she could stop it, she would stop it in a heartbeat. However, she did say unequivocally that tomorrow with blastoff, she is with her father, heart and soul. She will be there rooting along with everyone else.
We will all be rooting. Thank you very much for joining us. Dr. Bernadine Healy, the Dean of the Ohio State School of Medicine.
All right, thank you very much, Marcia. You're looking at the shuttle Discovery right there, and even though we've been talking largely about John Glenn's role in this mission, which is purely medical, most of this mission is dedicated to experiments with robotics and other areas, so it is not a completely, totally medical mission.
But when we come back, we're going to take you all around Columbus and show you how many people are getting ready to watch this liftoff.
But first, you're looking right now at live pictures of the shuttle as the countdown to Discovery continues. We'll be right back.
Live from the Kennedy Space Center, 10 TV Eyewitness News presents Countdown to Discovery, John Glenn's return to space.
And right now you're looking at a live shot of the Space Shuttle Discovery on the launch pad right there with its nose up, getting ready for the taking off to the heavens with on board, of course, John Glenn and 6 others.
That's right, and as far as we know right now, checking our watches against the shot clock over there, shot clock, I'm talking basketball now, the countdown clock, it
the
seems
NBA's
that
still locked
everything,
out.
that's right, I'm dying because I'm going through NBA withdrawal, but it seems that everything is a go. There aren't any major problems going on, and it looks as though the launch is going to take off at 2 o'clock, and again, the weather here is just perfect.
It is, and we've had jets flying around here, and we talked to Dr. Sullivan a few moments ago, and she says that's part of the pre-flight ritual. Dr. Sullivan, can you explain that? They're checking for, of course, they don't have to worry about visibility today.
That's right. Ceiling and visibility are not a problem today, but there's a specialized business jet that's been converted to fly like the orbiter flies, which means make it very clunky so it drops fast. And Jim Weatherby, who's the current head of flight crew operations, he'll be flying profiles on that to make sure the crosswinds are within limits, to pick up any handling quality information that he might want to relay to Kurt. There is an abort case that the orbiter can fly that bends it back around and brings it back to the launch site if something big happens within the first several minutes.
So they take every precaution then?
Every bit of data you can add is good data to have.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Sullivan.
We want to get an update now on the countdown, and let's head over to Deb Knapp, the Ohio News Network. Deb?
Well, Dave and Angela, you know, last time John Glenn went up into space, about 400 people were here to cover the event. This year, this STS-95 mission that he will be taking off on, NASA received nearly 4,000 requests for media credentials to be here. So it's who knows actually how many people will be here. But, you know, we met one fella who has covered Glenn almost practically all of his own life, and he's here to capture it all again. If you look at the faces of the media covering this shuttle mission, many weren't even around during John Glenn's first flight on Friendship 7, or they don't remember.
She's beautiful.
But Ralph Morse, a retired Life magazine photographer, not only remembers, but he spent many days covering it. He was one of the first to capture Glenn as a space rookie.
I was assigned to cover it. My assignment also was, we know the cities the 7 men live, but we don't know their names. Whoever lives in Virginia, you go home with afterwards. Be John Glenn. That's how, and I went home with John that evening, and we became...
Just like the space program is giving John Glenn another shot.
Focus. Take.
Life magazine is doing the same for Morse.
I've been retired for 10 years, and they asked me to come back to cover John, and I said, no, this is for young people. It's not for us 81-year-old people.
But after placing a call to his good friend, the man most of us are here to see, he changed his mind.
John has been a hero all through his life in the Marines. He was our first astronaut. He's been a great senator. No, you got a real American hero, so therefore the public will automatically do it.
Is there anybody else? You know Ralph Morris, he is just a gentleman. He's a great person. He's like your next door neighbor, and he's covered this since the beginning. Again, he retired 10 years ago. He came back for this. I asked him if there's anybody else who could pull him out of retirement, and he said, no, this is all about a friendship. David.
All right, Deb,
Deb,
thank you very much. You know, our Marcy Fleischer has been standing by live at the Astronaut Hall of Fame, where quite a crowd is gathering there. Marcy?
Angela, in about the last half hour, the crowd has really been growing. Take a look behind me. There are probably several hundred now on the front lawn of the Astronaut Hall of Fame. They tend to gravitate towards that corner there. That's because that is the very best spot to see Launch Pad 39B. It's about 11 miles away, and if you stand in that corner, you will see the Discovery shuttle lift off. Here at the Astronaut Hall of Fame, they've got some fabulous exhibits. They've also got a very special program called Space Camp. Earlier this week, we caught up with some campers from Ohio. Hopefully we'll hear from those campers later. Angela, lots of kids, and Dave, lots of kids come down to participate in the camp. Those kids who were lucky enough to be here this week obviously get an extra thrill. They get to watch John Glenn live, and they're not on the lawn. They get to stand on top of the building. So a very special privilege if you've attended Space Camp. David, Angela?
All right, Marcy. Thank you very much, and we will be back with you in just a minute.
There you see the countdown clock. We're at 20 minutes and 9 seconds, and we will find out that will be a 20-minute hold here. We want to go to Dr. Sullivan right now to explain to us, Catherine, what are they going to do at this time, and why is this built in at 20 minutes?
There are two 10-minute built-in holds between now and the launch, Dave. This 10-minute hold at T-minus 20 and another at 9. It's really just a bit of a benchmark. Everybody pause for a second. Every controller you'll see in the Launch Control Center has some other people behind them supporting them with additional data. Talk to your colleagues, make sure everything is synced up and you're ready to go. The entire team will review the launch window open and close times, any final little bits of hold constraints that have changed.
What is the crew doing at this time?
Crew's really just sitting and listening.
I mean,
there's no particular crew action required. You're listening again. You're really listening to the launch control team go through its paces at this point. Few more switches for the commander and PLT to throw in the remaining 20 minutes, but all on specific request from the launch control team.
This hold is for how long?
This is a 10-minute hold.
Okay.
The voice. Let's listen in to Lisa Malone talking about what's happening here.
She's joined on the console by the weather flight director, Wayne Hale, himself a veteran launch flight director, and he'll be working with the weather forecasters here in Houston to determine if conditions at possible contingency landing sites meet the shuttle's launch commit criteria. Weather forecasts are continuing to look promising to
You'll hear
support
Lisa
today's
talking
launch of
about
Discovery.
a lady at Mission Control Center. The flight director for Ascent is Linda Ham. And the female voice you'll hear once the vehicle clears the tower is astronaut Susan Still, Ascent Capcom.
This is the second time that flight director Linda Ham, Capcom Susan Still, led the flight control team for a shuttle ascent.
Through the entire 43-hour countdown. 2 more, this one and 1 more remaining.
Horowitz is in contact with Chief Astronaut Charlie Precourt, flying the weather aircraft at the Kennedy Space Center. He's been flying both a T-38 and the shuttle training.
He's talking about the jets we were talking about.
That's the jets exactly, the weather jets. You know, there are tens of thousands of people right down here in Florida who are waiting for the launch of the shuttle Discovery. But of course, there are plenty of folks back home in central Ohio who are also watching this launch. And our Kelly Hudson is at One Columbus School with a very special group of young people. Kelly?
Well, you know, the Discovery astronauts have a captive audience right here at Clinton Middle School. I'm with the Young Astronauts Club, and they're all anxious to see that rocket take off. But first, we want to hear from Justin Adams. He's 11 and a half years old, and he's not certain he wants to go up with this ride, but maybe in the future. Justin, tell me about your hopes of maybe being an astronaut one day.
because I got good grades in science and math last year and this year, so I might become an astronaut when I get out of college.
What are you looking forward to here in about 35 minutes when that rocket takes off? What are you hoping to see?
The rocket going up in space.
And what's going to be most interesting for you?
That a 77-year-old man is going up in space, so I get to talk to him at COSI.
Oh, that'll be exciting. You said before you also were interested in the weightlessness aspect of it all. Why?
See how it feels, how to float in space.
Maybe you'll be able to do that one day.
I might.
You might. Keep up those good grades, you can do anything. Math and science is a lot of what these students learn in the Young Astronauts Club, Angela and Dave. And they also get a chance to go to Rickenbacker, the air base, and actually get a feel for what aeronautics is all about. But today, you can't beat the lesson they're going to get right here in the school library as they watch Discovery take off.
Okay,
Thanks
Kelly.
a lot, Kelly.
That's great. Listen, 10 TV is also live at COSI, and of course, that's Catherine Sullivan's home, I guess, so to speak. All right. Luann Stoya is there, and the kids are doing something special there. What's going on, Luann?
That's right, Dave. I want to tell Catherine that everybody's asking about her as well. So best wishes from COSI in Columbus to all the crew down there. Now, we have probably the next best thing to being there here at COSI. We are watching the launch and the preparations on high-definition television. It would be the future of television. And this pioneering adventure, if you will, is being watched by lots of folks in Central Ohio coming here to COSI. One of those groups is from Hocking College, and Jared Allen is here from New Lexington. Jared, why did your group decide to come today?
We decided to come today, Luann, because it was a historic event not only for the nation, but for us. A new era in television, and what a better way to spend it than to watch John Glenn go back into space.
What's your impression of watching it on HD TV? It is amazing how clear it is.
Oh, it's amazing how clear it is versus the NTSC signal, something that we study in college. It's just unbelievable.
A pioneering adventure, that's what we're saying. I had to actually touch the screen to make sure I wasn't looking out the window. And I want to tell you, a lot of people have decided to come here to watch. This family here, Eli is 4.5, and Eli was excited to watch the launch with his dad. They are from Columbus, and it's interesting that his father tells me he is the same age, Eli that is, that his dad was when he watched the launch on black and white television back in 1962. So it's next generation TV. Angela and Dave.
All right, Luann, thank you very much. You know, besides having Catherine Sullivan here, she is the director of COSI, there is another NASA COSI connection that you're about to tell us about.
Yeah, I discovered this when we got down here, Angela. Pedro Duque of the European Space Agency is making his first flight today.
Right.
He'll be the first Spaniard to fly in space. The European Space Agency had a special patch made up to commemorate this, and it's shown here. And I discovered this at the News Center and noticed that it's done by the same artist that will be creating all the interior signage for the new COSI in Columbus to open next year.
Excellent.
Javier Mariscal of Barcelona, both shown here on this European Space Agency patch, and to be featured at COSI next year.
Just one more COSI NASA connection.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks a lot, Dr. Sullivan. Let's go now to OSU, where Lisa Kick is standing by. Lisa?
Yes, we are here just outside the president's office, Angela, and really a neat week here as we kick off Ohio State's Space Week, you might say. So joining me now is a man who knows all about the Space Week. We've got some folks gathered to watch the blast off and lift off of the shuttle Discovery. And Dave Ferguson, you are one of the assistants to the provost, and you have kind of coordinated this room as a space room.
That's right. We are using this to honor John Glenn and also to highlight the research that some of our faculty do. We have about $20 million worth of space-related research here. We're very proud of it. We're all very excited about this. This is not our first Buckeye in space. We've had a number of Buckeyes, including this Buckeye that went up in 1995 that traveled 3.7 million miles before it came back. And it had 4 Ohio people on board that one.
Yeah.
So we have quite a tradition of people of Ohio.
And the one person that wasn't a Buckeye, they made an honorary Buckeye, so that everyone going up there would have some sort of flavor for Ohio. Now, all this week you have special events going on. What are some of the highlights you can tell me real quickly?
Well, we're having a series of lectures, but also everybody's invited to the Ohio Stadium this Saturday, where we're going to have a rocket launch, a statewide rocket launch. We're going to be having about 500 kids from across the state shooting rockets off there. in the stadium. So
You thought it was loud during the OSU games. It's going to be very loud with all those little rockets going off, Dave and Angela. You guys are going to miss some big noise happening here in Columbus.
Okay, Lisa, thank you very much. Lisa Kick reporting from OSU.
We want to go to Catherine Sullivan real quickly because you've been listening to NASA Control and you say there's just a tiny glitch in this countdown now.
It's actually not a glitch in the countdown, David. It's something they discovered in the orbiter itself during the processing a month or so ago. An indicator that tells them where main engine number 2 is actually pointed. Doesn't read exactly as it should. There are other ways to determine where the engine really is pointed. But the software in the ground launch sequencer expects a certain set of numbers from that engine. So when they reach the point at 3 minutes and 25 seconds where they're gimbaling the main engines, they expect that software to say, hey, this is not what I expected. And since they understand the problem, they'll confirm their indications and they'll reset that software flag so they can proceed.
So it isn't anything that's going to stop the launch or hold up the launch at all?
It should not be something that should hold up the launch.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Sullivan. And the clock is ticking.
It is. As the clock ticks, here's what we can expect to happen in the next few minutes. At T-minus 4 minutes and 55 seconds, the liquid oxygen will be drained back from the fuel tanks.
And then at T-minus 3 minutes and 55 seconds, there will be an orbiter profile test.
And at T-minus 3 minutes and 30 seconds, an engine profile test. And Dr. Sullivan, are we okay?
We're looking good. Everything's going well.
All right.
We'll be back with more right after this.
Stay with us.
You're watching Mission Discovery, special coverage from 10 TV Eyewitness News and the Ohio News Network, with 10 TV's Dave Kaler, Angela Pace, and ONN's Deborah Knapp.
And welcome back. Live pictures now, and the count there, I think, has resumed. We are resuming after the 20-minute hold. You know, if you've watched shuttle launches, you have not only seen them, but you have heard them too, and we're not just talking about the sounds of the rocket in this case.
Because for every launch there is a voice, the voice of the commentator, and today's voice of NASA is Lisa Malone. Now, she is the head of the media here at the Kennedy Space Center and has been calling shuttle launches for a number of years now. Her office is in a room in the Launch Control Center, and we spoke with her a couple of days ago. We tried to find out what she was going to say when the shuttle took off, but she put her fingers to her lips and said, shh. This is going to be a secret, so we'll all just have to watch and wait and listen.
Now, well, John Glenn has been in the public eye all year long. While training for this mission, John Glenn also kept his office in Washington. And it wasn't until Congress recessed for the fall did Glenn begin working full-time on the astronaut duties. Right now, we want to go to Chuck Strickler, who is down at the State House right now in Columbus. Chuck?
Well, Dave and Angela, good afternoon from the crypt of the State House. We are in the basement here where we have a large screen television set up. You can see the space shuttle there and the launch pad there. A lot of the workers here at the State House, tourists coming through here, will have the opportunity to see the launch, which is, of course, in less than an hour. And look what I happened to come across from one of the people that I bumped into today. Look at this. This is an edition from the Columbus Evening Dispatch, Tuesday, February 20th, 1962. You can see the yellowed pages. The actual day when John Glenn went up into space for the first time back in 1962. Glenn launched into orbit, the headline says, beautiful sight, he says. And you can expect a similar type of headline tomorrow in papers all across the country for sure. Now, a lot of people are beginning to gather for this historic launch and have to introduce Doug Engelhardt, who actually collects newspapers. And Doug, you have something else too. When you were a Cub Scout as a little boy, you collected some kind of a scrapbook, correct?
That's right. I was one of the space program kids of the 60s, and all that started when I was very little, and I collected all that stuff. Very excited about the space program, beginning with the Mercury astronauts in a...
Let's just see some of this. What did you collect here?
Well, this was a Cub Scout project I did on the space program at that time, beginning with the very first launch of Alan Shepard through Grissom, Chaffee, John Glenn. Here's newspaper clippings, stuff from Time magazine.
Right, just detailing the facts of the early years of the program.
Right, and I think I got a merit badge for this, and I've always held on to it, and thank God I did.
Yeah. Doug Engelhardt, just one of the many fans of the space program, down here at the State House, getting ready to witness history once again. We also want to mention that some students, 4th grade students from Bluffview Elementary School in Worthington, Judy Tabor's class, they will also be coming down here in time for the launch, we're told, and we hope to get some more reaction from them and other people as we throw it back now to you.
All right, what a great opportunity for those young people, too.
Okay, once again, as the clock ticks, here's what we can expect to happen in the next few minutes. At T-minus 2 minutes and 55 seconds, NASA will pressurize the liquid hydrogen tanks.
At T-minus 2 minutes, 35 seconds, the fuel cells will be readied.
And at T-minus 1 minute and 57 seconds, NASA will pressurize the liquid hydrogen tanks.
And right now, we want to go back to Marcy Fleischer, who is at the Astronaut Hall of Fame. Marcy, is the crowd there getting a little bit antsy?
A little bit antsy, I think more excited than antsy. The anticipation is certainly building. We've ventured off our truck to join the hundreds that have gathered here on the lawn of the Astronaut Hall of Fame. I've got Stephen with me. You didn't come that far, just from Tampa. Why are you here today? Have you ever seen a shuttle live?
Never seen a shuttle live at all. This is the first time.
What are you expecting?
A good, safe launch. It's very exciting. And seeing John Glenn go up again for him is absolutely fantastic.
Okay, Stephen, I want to also introduce our viewers to some of the younger John Glenn fans who are here. Justin, where are you from?
I'm from Orlando.
Orlando. What do you think about all that's going on today?
It's really freaky because people were coming here yesterday. It's pretty cool.
And are you looking forward to this?
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think it's going to sound like?
Loud.
Loud. And what do you think about all the excitement here today?
I don't know. I just want to see John Glenn go up again and just have fun.
Okay, guys, there is a lot of fun here at the Astronaut Hall of Fame, kind of like a carnival atmosphere. Everybody watching their watches and knowing now that we're just 25 minutes out. Excitement continues to build. We've got a terrific view just about 11 miles from you, Angela and Dave.
All right, Marcy, thank you very much. We just found out that earlier we were talking about Lisa Malone, the voice of NASA. We just found out that at T-minus 9 minutes, Dr. Sullivan, Scott Carpenter, who is one of Glenn's Mercury 7 astronaut buddies, is going to have a very special message for Senator Glenn then. That's T-minus 9 minutes. Shuttle Discovery countdown.
And it's really symbolic because it was Scott Carpenter that said, you know, Godspeed, John Glenn, during the first flight in the Mercury. Let's go to the Ohio State University now and Lisa Kick. Lisa, what's happening there?
In Bricker Hall, the OSU Men's Glee Club is singing to us, getting everyone excited for this big mission. Listen in for just a little bit.
From sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for nature's dream.
Very fitting as our Senator and astronaut John Glenn makes his second trip into space as the oldest man in the world to ever go into space. Really just some excitement building here at Ohio State just within the last 20 minutes or so, you guys. We have a nice crowd on hand now of students and staff, and we'll be checking back in with you and letting you know about their reaction to all of this. Folks are starting to get even more excited now as we inch closer to liftoff.
We all are, Lisa. Yeah. Thank you very much. Lisa Kick reporting from OSU. We'll be back right after this.
Stay with us.
Carpenter, again, is here at Kennedy Space Center watching the launch of his once fellow crewmate of one of the original 7. We have all three of the surviving original 7 are here at Kennedy Space Center. Of course, John Glenn patiently awaiting the launch of the shuttle Discovery, and just less than 20 minutes away now.
For the cabin bleed down, and that's the only one we reached as far as we know.
All right, we were listening to the voice of Lisa Malone, Mission Control. Dr. Sullivan, it must be a real rush then for these Mercury 7 astronauts, the remaining 3, to be able to be here to wish Godspeed to their old astronaut buddy.
I think you're right, Angela. Just seeing them around here last night and today, they're clearly pretty pumped about this, excited for John, maybe a bit nostalgic themselves, and not all of them get down for all the shuttle launches, so I think they're probably also enjoying watching a shuttle launch, which is very different than the Mercury Redstone they remember.
I thought it was interesting to note that after they played over the PA system the message of Scott Carpenter, and there was applause that you could hear in the background all the way up the media tents and even lined up here on Banana Creek over here.
Yeah, I thought Scott did that very nicely. The tradition, of course, is to wish Godspeed and a safe flight to the mission commander and the entire crew. And 36 years ago, that was John.
That's right. He was the only one in the capsule there. So I think now we're going to go to Robin Simmons, who is in New Concord, Ohio, hometown of John Glenn. Robin?
We are, Angela, and I can tell you that there is no excitement that would match what is going on in here. 800 students all attending John Glenn High School who are gathered here in the gym to see what's going to happen just about 15 minutes from now. And we want to kind of give you a flavor of what was going on in New Concord today. Excitement in John Glenn's hometown is at a fever pitch. From the flags proudly flying all over town to well-wishers watching history unfold on live television, the fever is contagious, even crossing state lines.
We decided that we would take time on this trip back to stop and see some of these things, and so that's what we're doing.
Charlotte Holmquist and her husband Fred are on their way back to Minnesota. Their stopover in New Concord today was pure coincidence. And of course, the most important place here in New Concord, a living shrine to Glenn, 186 Friendship Drive, Glenn's boyhood home, the street renamed for Friendship 7. Although she's an out-of-towner, Charlotte speaks for everyone here who's just happy to be a part of this historical day.
Goodness, this is what life is about.
And what life is about here at John Glenn High School, getting ready for the launch. And I pulled one of the students aside, Emily Tuttle, a sophomore here. What do you think about this whole thing?
I think it's pretty exciting. It's a good learning experience for us as students, and hopefully it can help for age-related problems. Hopefully it can lead to some discoveries for treatment of problems.
Going to a school that's named after this guy, I mean, creating history for a second time. I mean, how does that make you feel?
I think it's just pretty exciting. It's pretty nice to know that somebody from a small town can make it big and be as successful as he has been.
Wonderful. You heard it there. One of the students from John Glenn's hometown here in New Concord, just as proud as she can be, and everyone here is as proud as they can be that John Glenn is from this area and never forgot it and always comes back, Angela.
He is their favorite son, Robin. Thank you very much.
And we take a look at the countdown clock. We find out we are still in that 9-minute hole, but they're telling us we have about 5 minutes left in this 9-minute hole. And Angela, talking to Catherine Sullivan a few moments ago, she was indicating to us that this is the kind of movies, the right stuff in the movie, where everything is happening real quickly.
Can't you just see Tom Hanks right now in Mission Control? Because things now go click, 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 as Dr. Sullivan said. This is when the pace really picks up, and we get into this serious, serious pre-launch phase. You're looking at the shuttle Discovery there, poised, ready to go.
Back in just a moment. Stay with us. Now, are you as a crew member hearing all of this inside the
Yes, the crew is following these status checks.
Okay.
This is really when you start to get ready to go.
Safety mission assurances go, Ralph. Payload processing. Payloads are go. Cape weather. Roger, sir. We have no constraints for launch. Ops manager. MMT is go for launch. The engineering one more time.
Oh, this is exciting. No, it really is.
We've been listening here to the NASA test director and the launch director. There are several officials involved in this point. The NASA test director is the
Engineering director 212.
NASA official in the firing room.
We are still engineering our pull.
They're looking for the chief of engineering to speak up and stake their claim. Silence is not an option at this point. You're responsible for understanding the status of what you're dealing with.
This entity on 212. We will be resuming the count momentarily.
Okay, they're going to pick up the clock here.
So apparently
We've remained in the built-in hold an additional 8.5 minutes so far.
So I've completed my poll. We are go. All right, thank you. CDR launch director. Go ahead, launch director. Kurt, the launch team is go. Your vehicle's ready. The weather's beautiful out there. On behalf of the entire launch team, you and the crew of Discovery have a great mission.
All right.
Good.
That sounds
good.
like the
Thank you very much, sir. And
okay
Discovery's crew is definitely ready to go, and we would like you to proceed.
Wow.
NTD, pick up the count.
Okay, and looking.
Copy that, launch director. And CISL NTD. CISL. Up to recorder activation complete.
You know, I don't know if you can see.
Not yet.
What are all these buses behind us?
Trying to pick up the hold at 9, is that
You
correct?
know?
Negative.
Dave, I would imagine those are
Copy
just
that.
tour groups and media groups that are out here at the various viewing sites.
Okay.
Their NTD is going to pick up the clock here in just a second.
CLS copy. Countdown clock will resume on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark.
And we resume the count.
No, we're now at T-minus 9 minutes and counting.
And applause.
We heard
a
NASA
polite
Test
smattering
Director
of applause
Doug Lyons
throughout
conduct
the
a
group
poll of
out
the launch
here
team.
as the
Also,
countdown does resume.
Launch Director conducting a poll of his team.
And we will be back with more of our shuttle
John
discovery
Hurry.
coverage in just a second.
I got the sweaty palms.
Also located here in the firing room. T-minus 20 seconds. T-minus 15. T-minus 10, 9, 8. We have a go for engine start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Booster ignition and liftoff of Discovery with a crew of 6 astronaut heroes and 1 American legend.
Hey, good line.
So that's what Lisa was going to say. Look at that. It's like a candle.
Roger roll, Discovery.
Oh my God.
Was I right?
Yeah.
You can actually feel.
You're watching Mission Discovery, special coverage from 10 TV Eyewitness News and the Ohio News Network, with 10 TV's Dave Kaler, Angela Pace, and ONN's Deborah Knapp.
T-minus 10, 9, 8. We have a go for engine start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Booster ignition and liftoff of Discovery with a crew of 6 astronaut heroes and 1 American legend.
Was launched on his second space mission in his career. A flawless liftoff for the shuttle Discovery on a beautiful day here at Cape Canaveral, and just the roar of applause, the roar of approval that went up when that shuttle finally did lift off. It was something to be seen and heard.
Well, after you see those pictures and you see that the shuttle had taken off, it's all in Mission Control's hands now out in Houston, Texas, and that's where our Tino Ramos is right now. Tino?
Yeah, Dave, they were really happy to see this thing go. You know, we were watching some of the employees here at the training center. That's where we're located here on the Johnson Space Center, and they had their eyes riveted.
After all, about 2/3 of astronauts who go into space do feel a little nauseous the first day or two, but Senator Glenn continues to feel just fine.
No, I haven't had any of that so far. It's been great, and I've been quite comfortable and haven't had any of that.
Tino Ramos, WBNS TV out of Columbus, Ohio. This is for Senator Glenn. Senator, 2 weeks ago you told me, or at least I asked you, if you could meet the physical demands on your aging body up in space, and you gave me a definitive yes. Now that you're nearing the end of your mission, has this been more physically demanding than you had expected it to be?
No. I remember the one-word answer I gave you. I didn't mean to be a smart aleck that day at the press conference, but I feel very strongly about that. No, there have been changes, and it's been interesting to observe myself. The fluid shift in the body that occurred, I probably still look a little fat-faced up here. I don't know whether the others are pretty well down. Mine feels, I think I'm pretty well down. But I go through the same things. And we've been doing, I have a number of blood samples. I think I'm up to...
Commander's taking over Space Shuttle Discovery manually at this time.
Dave, we just heard the sonic boom. We just heard the sonic boom here, so we just broke the barrier here. We're now kind of, there we go. I don't know if you heard that just now, Dave.
We got it here, yeah.
Yeah, so it should be entering into our physical site at this point. We're kind of still looking for it in the air, but again, you can see the great video, or the view right now we're seeing through the camera shots.
10 seconds away from touchdown.
Okay, Catherine, can you pick it up here for us and tell us what's going on?
From the landing
Well, they're about
facility,
68 miles out now. They're
miles
making
per
their
hour.
final right turn.
Commander Kurt Brown at the controls.
And in
as
just a
Discovery
couple more
continues
seconds, they'll
to
begin that this is the
toward
lineup
landing.
turn to get them lined up on the runway.
They just passed up the call to say use the drag chute only in an emergency because of the loss of the drag chute cover. They expected that. The messages gave them that this morning.
Other than at the commander's discretion today.
Eileen Hawley will probably give us a real good blow-by-blow through here, and we can hear the final conversations between Kurt
2
and the
minutes and 30
Capcom.
seconds away from a landing at the Kennedy Space Center.
You're on an airliner, 3 miles, 15,000 feet still up in the air. You've got about 20 minutes to go to touchdown.
Right.
Okay, now they can see the runway.
Runway in sight.
Although they've been in a right bank, and the view of the runway was apparent to Steve Lindsay in the right seat, he is now in a position where the pilot and the commander can both see the runway.
If you look at the tail of the orbiter here, Dave, you can see it looks like it's split open in the back. That's true. The rudder actually splits into 2 halves as a speed brake. And the angle she's descending at and her speed, it's about 4 times steeper than an airliner's angle of descent, and right now about twice as fast.
Pilot Steve Lindsay has now armed the landing gear, and he's waiting to just push that button to lower him at 300 feet.
You can get a sense of the sink rate there. Here's the gear coming down, so they're below 300 feet now. Hear the noise. It's a very large vehicle ripping a path through the air.
Wow.
Main gear touchdown.
As predicted, no issue with the drag chute. They'll inspect it, of course, after landing and see what state it's really in.
And nose gear touchdown.
And he's home.
Discovery rolls out on runway 33, concluding a journey of 3.6 million miles and a moment in history.
A number of minutes for crews on the ground.
Okay, now we want to go to Tino Ramos, who was down at the Kennedy Space Center. Tino, did you like that landing?
Oh my goodness! You know, I happened to miss the launch. I was at Johnson at the time, so I was glad I came back. What a sight it was coming up from our area. It came just on the angle on my line of sight at this point. A very large vehicle, and it's something that I always wanted to see land itself. But you know, it's indicative of this entire mission. Very textbook for a landing too, and they've been reiterating.